Hi, I'm Peep, and in this episode we're going to be peeping the two special episodes that came from Euphoria for Rue and for Jules. So Euphoria is a show on HBO Max, that took up a bunch of the zeitgeist in 2019 for a lot of reasons. A lot of people just kept calling it our generation's skins and all of that. I think that generated a lot of interest, but also it came a lot from a distinctive visual storytelling. I mean, the camera work was insane. It literally was so fast-paced. Made you feel like you're in a music video a lot of the time. The fast-paced storytelling that honestly reflects the fast-paced storytelling of the social media era in general was really successful. And of course, the looks that it turned out. A lot of it made people aware of a lot of brands, but also of makeup, taking what was once very editorial and almost exclusive feeling makeup and kind of democratizing it in a way by putting it on like these teenage characters, and so it kind of became fun as everyone tried to do it. So if you haven't watched Euphoria, you probably know the look of it, which is a testament to Sam Levinson just knowing exactly how this story should be seen and should be heard. But then Miss COVID happened, Miss Rona. And I think it was like the second day of filming, they had to halt it because everything started crashing down. And so I think they're one of the first productions that were really affected by this era. But Sam Levinson was like, no, I want to continue the story in some kind of way. I'm gonna use quarantine for some kind of like creativity kind of thing. And so these two episodes were born, focusing on Rue and Jules. So I'm gonna be reviewing them today, and let me just say before you get too far, I'm gonna talk about spoilers. I can't personally, I just can't talk without that level of detail. So you have been forewarned. But yeah, with that said, let's get into the review. So let's talk about this Rue episode. Initially, I'm gonna say I had mixed emotions. Dare I say even a little disappointed. But let me explain. So, for all the reasons I just talked about, Euphoria just has a distinct way of telling their stories. And I felt like at the beginning, it didn't feel like I was back in the universe, and I feel like that was very important too, because this is the first episode we're getting in about a year. I feel like in some ways it should be like, oh, we're back, it doesn't, not necessarily with the storylines, but just the feel of it. And I get why there was this dream sequence, and I get why it was placed there, but it did feel a little jarring, because it didn't feel like Euphoria. For one, it had natural sunlight. Not to say that it didn't really have that in season 1, but I'm saying they had a distinct lighting style that they didn't enact. And I feel like I could see an argument of it's a dream sequence, but it didn't feel much like a dream sequence to me initially. I was actually really confused. And I feel like Euphoria, there was definitely a way to make it feel dreamier, visually. There was definitely something more to be done visually. And I don't know if it's more of the context of less production and all of that, or even the schedule, they had to film right away or something. They didn't really have time to plan that out. I don't know. So it was just, I didn't feel like I was there immediately, which was a problem. But I feel like once I was there with Rue, it only took me about a minute to be like, okay, it's Euphoria, boo. It's Euphoria. And for me, it was because of Zendaya's acting. Whoa. In that first minute with Rue's dialogue with Ollie and stuff, you're reminded why she won that Emmy. Rightfully so. Like, it felt like nothing changed. Like, it felt like we're back. It picked up immediately with that. Good to be back with Rue, and it was just what I love about Zendaya and her performance as Rue is just the little nuances that she brings to the character that is necessary for that character and to tell that story right. Especially as you know, Ollie didn't miss a beat. You just like, you know, tell me about the relapse. Like, we need to talk about this, okay? Which, let's talk about the writing. Let's talk about the writing. So since we're kind of already there, this, go Sam Levinson. This episode, he was flexing some writing chops with this one. I mean, it was very nuanced, and at times it was very profound, which isn't something isn't something like a word I would use to describe season 1's writing. So, and maybe that has to do because this is an episode more of a character portrayal, and we know how much Rue as a character is very reflective of him. So I'm sure it was much more natural to just write this episode. But it also felt like a character portrayal of Ali in a lot of ways. He didn't feel as a supporting act like he did when we first saw him last season. And honestly, Coleman Domingo, I mean, at this point, it's a given. Like, Zendaya, she's gonna be fantastic as Rue. Like, every time. Like, you know, she's gonna bring that A game because it takes a lot, and, you know, we should give kudos to her every single time. But Coleman Domingo really stole this episode for me. My God. In a script that is sharing so much of these two characters' perspectives on different topics, it is very critical that, you know, as an actor, you sell it, you know, that this is literally as if you believe it yourself. And they talked about a range of topics too. Like, they talked, of course, about addiction, something that they both shared, but they also talked about spirituality and like mortality and one's purpose. And I think so that also brought it to one of the more profound parts of this episode, or at least I would say the first, because there was multiple profound parts. Like, I'm telling you, like, this writing is different from Sam Levinson, like, in a way, like, I'm not gonna lie. But the first profound part, I'll say, is when, as Ollie's talking about, you know, his conversion to Islam and all that, and someone's purpose and stuff, and I can't remember exactly, but essentially Rue says something along, you know, the lines of, well, my dad had a purpose, but he still died. And I would argue his purpose was to raise me and my sister. I mean, that kind of came, like, at left field in a bit. Like, it made sense why she said that, but, like, and not that it was, like, out of place or out of character necessarily, just, like, oh my gosh, like, it hit you, because it's, like, she's totally right. Like, it's something that I think people don't realize sometimes in this kind of conversation. And even Ollie himself, you could tell he didn't. That's not something he really considered. But I think that's the beauty of this conversation, is that, you know, these two perspectives, these things that they have, you know, their own experiences, but also things that they have considered or haven't considered. Learning from each other in that way was really exciting. But like I said, Coleman Domingo, if there's only two people, but there's one name, and you're not gonna forget Zendaya, but there's one name to remember. It's Coleman Domingo, because, oh my gosh, I think my favorite part in his performance in this episode was that little interlude where Jules sends Rue the Moses Sumney song, the Moses Sumney sequence, I'll call it. And Ollie goes outside, you know, it's almost Christmas, he's talking to his daughters, and oh my god, that performance. Because if there was two things going on. I mean, you saw him, you know, trying to talk to his daughters, wanting to talk, wanting to celebrate this holiday, missing them. You saw, like, you literally in his face saw him missing them and yearning for them. But you also saw the pain and the hurt in his face as he's trying to put on a happy face to talk to his daughters. And just, his voice was saying one thing, but you could tell in his face it was saying another. He was hurt, he was in pain, but he's yearning. And I think that also gave context in a way to him and Rue's relationship, and that connection. Because in a lot of ways, it's almost, you could tell it's almost like a second chance at having a daughter in a way. Not that he doesn't have daughters, but he's not really raising them at the moment. So it's like, it's almost like the sponsorship is him raising Rue in a way. I don't know, it's just like, it definitely, you could tell there's like that father-daughter relationship there. And also from Rue's end, I mean, she doesn't have a father figure at the moment and stuff, and Ollie's definitely guiding her and giving, this insight. Even with the whole discussion of, do you think I'm a good person, and all of that, which was another profound moment for me. I think there was even that line that was like, idea of one day being a good person is enough for me to try to continue to be a good person, despite all the stuff I did. Yeah, and just, oh my gosh, that was very heart-wrenching to hear, especially, because also we didn't learn that stuff about Ollie and his violent tendencies from the addiction until towards the end of the episode, especially, and after that phone call, which put it kind of in another new light. Is this what his daughters are thinking on the phone with him? And so yeah, it was, as much as it was a character portrayal of Rue, it was in a lot of ways of Ollie as well. But another thing I'll say about the writing too is that it also just flowed so seamlessly, like as a conversation. I think people don't realize how hard it can be to write dialogue sometimes, and also to steer the conversation so naturally. I mean, Ollie also just took us so many different places, commenting on stuff even on society, like how everyone wants to have a revolution now, or there's just like so many revolutions happening. And also that one, it was more of a side comment, but it was also something to consider, of like the whole unforgivable conversation and his insistence on like making her think that she's still redeemable, which was really important. Definitely another, I would say, fatherly moment that kind of reinforces that connection between the two of them. I guess the last thing I'll say about this episode is that for me, the beauty of this episode, usually the beauty of Euphoria in general, you can get a lot out of it, but a lot of what you quickly get out of it, I'll say, is how it looks visually. And so, and in a lot of ways, the directing too. But I would say in this episode, the beauty of it is in the writing and the performance. It was, in some ways, it was kind of like seeing this, I mean this in the best way possible, but just seeing this stage play between these two actors, and just like so good at their craft, and you're just like, you didn't know where to look because they're both so good. And so that was really delightful. And of course, the writing, because the writing in this episode made you think more, and you kind of felt part of the, well, you didn't feel a part of the conversation, you kind of almost felt like you're intruding a bit, but like, it was flowing there with you. There was a lot of profound moments that I can't say. There was a lot of those in season 1. So it was definitely, in some ways, a palate cleanser, for sure. If you see a lighting change, no you didn't. Yeah, as much as I love the writing and stuff, and I love the performances, the beginning just wasn't in the place where it should be. I think this episode could have also benefited from you know, splicing up clips, maybe putting some additions of some kind of B-roll in between the conversations, and just, yeah, I think this episode was unfortunately missing just a little too much for me. So I'm going to be giving this episode a 6.5 out of 10. So now let's talk about the Jules episode. And let me just say, Euphoria is back, bitch. The style's back. I mean, it better be. Jules is a fashion girl, so there's a couple makeup looks, those are back. Hell, even some of the settings were back. I mean, a lot of the scenes were also at Jules's house and like in different parts of Jules's house and stuff. And I think for me that added a lot to feeling like I was in the Euphoria universe again, and just like feeling like I was home in some ways, home with the Jules. Even though I felt like Euphoria was back with this episode, it's not that it felt like season 1. It definitely did. It felt like, you know, in the special universe realm of storytelling for sure. Mostly because it started in the same way. Another conversation, but I think one important thing to note is that while the last episode was more of like a back and forth conversation, like saying your perspective and kind of hearing someone out in that way, this was more definitely one-sided because it was, you know, a therapy session. As a therapy session kind of should be, you know, like you're just kind of airing out everything that happened. I mean, it brought the Euphoria elements that I like, but I feel like it learned its lessons from the Rue episode, and it brought those in as well, mostly in its dynamic ass writing. This is kind of writing that we never, if you compare these two episodes to season 1, this is writing that we don't usually see, mostly because this is character, at the end of the day these are character portrayals. This episode's on Jules, though it's told from their perspective, and that was very evident in the topics that were talked about too. And I know I also keep comparing these two episodes, just like talk about the Jules episode. I know I will more, but I do want to, you know, follow this little interlude in that I think it is important that these two episodes connect in some way. I mean, Rue and Jules, they're connected in some kind of way. So, I mean, so I'm glad. I think just conceptually that's just a good idea too. And there aren't like banging you over the head with that either. Like there are subtle details that it kind of tell you something more about the relationship if you look deeper. For example, in Rue's episode, we remember this, you know, fantasy sequence that Rue describes as a dream, you know, a dream of living in New York one day with her love Jules, as Jules goes to fashion school. That for her, and also as she does drugs, you know, after she leaves. That's for Rue, that's the dream. That's, you know, I reached heaven basically. But then they brought that scene back in the Jules episode, but in a different lens, in the context of her saying, I have this nightmare, you know, I come back from fashion school and Rue's essentially overdosed in my bathroom and I can't help her and get to her. So on one hand, Rue is seeing the situation as something that's a dream, something that's very beautiful and positive, and Jules, you know, she has a different outlook on it. She's more worried about what could happen when she just leaves Rue alone, even for like a few hours. And so I think that also just reveals more about the relationship and maybe why it's good if there's a break for now. It kind of reinforces this conclusion I feel like a lot of people came to at the end of season 1, where like it's a wrong time, wrong place, but not necessarily wrong person kind of relationship. Because I mean, I don't know if you should have a relationship where one person sees is you moving in together as a positive or like as a dream, and then the other person sees it as a potential nightmare. I think there's some conflict there. So that part was interesting as a connector, but also, and this is a very small detail, but I feel like, I don't know, it was satisfying. I have to point it out. I mean, how at the end of Rue's episode, where Labyrinth's Ave Maria, So good. Where it's zooming in on her, and that's kind of how we end it, and she's kind of in this melancholic state, and then it ends in the same way for Jules, except we're zooming out. She's also it's raining in this melancholic way. Both with windows. Does that mean something? I don't know, but it's satisfying. It's satisfying. That link. Okay. Like, another connector was also in the writing, in that and like the topics discussed, there wasn't really much overlap, but I did find it really interesting when Jules was talking about her transness, because that wasn't something that we really got to hear from her a bunch. We heard a snippet, a little brief look into her brain in episode 7 when she's talking to Anna about it. But it felt really nice and really refreshing to see her expand on that in this episode, and also just describe it as this very spiritual thing. Like, this isn't a congregation, this is mine. This is something very personal, which I feel like was definitely, for me, the most profound part of the episode. I mean, also with the juxtaposition with like the ocean and stuff like that, and like that vastness, and how it's broad but it's beautiful as well, and it's very, yeah. And then also to juxtapose that with, Ollie talking about how he, in Rue's episode, talking about how he converted to Islam, and how that fits into his narrative. And so I think it was kind of interesting to see these two perspectives on religion, on spirituality. And it kind of reinforced the idea of that, that this is a pretty personal thing. You have these different experiences and stuff. So I kind of enjoyed that connector too. But besides the writing being top-notch, I think, personally, the directing was pretty good in this episode. I mean, there were just a lot of really nice choices, and again, this goes back to the writing. I'm sure Hunter definitely had like a part to play in the sequence of events and how things were told and stuff. But my God, like, it felt visually, very captivating. Something I really like that they did here is that, they could have followed the formula from, Rue's episode very easily. They laid it out pretty well. But I really like, and for me, this is why this episode stands out for me more than the Rue episode. I like how she didn't just tell her feelings. We got to see them visually. They found ways to represent them, and the ways they represented them were very artful. Very artful. The shots of the ocean when she was talking about her transness, I think was very beautiful, and just like how she felt about her sense of self. So we heard that, but then we also saw literally her feelings represented in this more abstract way with these waves and how it felt crashing over. But they also showed us how the excitement that she was talking about talking to Tyler felt. So we actually felt that more. It wasn't her just saying, oh, this was, I felt so much more excited, and it was more, exuberant of relationship, and I just knew more about it. And we literally saw it. We saw through the conversations that they showed. We saw through these fantasies that she was having. Again, very artfully done. That Euphoria lighting was back. Like, where was that Rue's episode? Like, they're all in the same Euphoria universe. This isn't just like Jules had, like, I don't know. This was the stuff I was missing, like, in that episode for sure. The nightmare that she was describing with about Rue, we literally saw what that nightmare looked like, and it was very anxiety inducing. So I think it also made us empathize even more, because again, like, these feelings were shown to us. We felt the feelings along with her as she was describing them. And so I feel like it wasn't like crazy different settings, but those insertion of more settings in between as she's talking made a big difference, and was definitely something I feel, again, was lacking in Rue's episode, unfortunately. Lastly, I really want to talk about the mom storyline for a number of reasons. So first, which is more, I guess, of a comment. But I really appreciate how they went into this relationship. One, because it's not really a relationship discussed or even shown in media a lot, but is such a complex relationship between a mom and a daughter. So yeah, appreciated that. I also feel like this was one of the loose threads, the many loose threads that were dangling at the end of season 1. Just what happened with her mom, essentially. And so this was probably a loose thread that would never have been tied. And so this was a perfect opportunity to do it. I'm glad that they took it. And not only that, but I feel like at some parts, I mean, I'm not complaining because I think how the direction was top notch with it, and I think they just, like, the recapping at some points, I was afraid it was going to become like a clip show, you know, like sometimes like on reality shows they need a filler episode, so like they catch you up and it's just literally clips from the season so far. I know Big Brother does this. So I feel like at times like it could have easily treaded into it, and it even towed the line at some points for me. But no, it was I'm glad that this mom storyline was here too, because it added something new that we didn't really see before, and also just gave more context towards Joel's situation in season 1. Kind of makes you literally want to go back and watch season 1 too, as you think about this, because I mean, there was a lot of very minute details and references to episode 6, and what was happening with her mom at the time, because she was already going through a lot. I mean, she was going through, you know, the Tyler Nate thing. She was thinking Bruce's sobriety, and which she was probably definitely reminded of because, you know, she's thinking about her mom's sobriety. It also gave maybe even context of like her tendency to lean towards alcohol as a coping mechanism. And so yeah, I felt it wasn't something like I was even really expecting to see so much of, but it added to the story. Yeah, and again, just like this episode, or just like the last episode, it flowed very seamlessly for me. And so, which I mean, yeah, Sam, even though Hunter definitely took the wheel with this episode, with the writing, especially like the topics and like the dialogue and stuff like that, I think Sam's getting a knack of how things, you know, the flow of things, and it's showing, and yeah, it's really good. I thought this was an amazing episode, and also we need to discuss the ending of this episode. Yep, we do, because it was really unexpected, but I really appreciate and like the decision that they had to kind of at the very end break out of that, you know, therapist scene and kind of almost bring us to what their present day looks like, and to have literally the crossing of these paths of, you know, with Rue referencing Ollie, and you know, and we just know that Jules just went to the therapist and all that, which also good for them that they're, you know, they're not just getting back into things, like, I don't know, like that they're trying to actually reflect on the situations that happen. You know, that's actually, you know, pretty mature. I love it. It feels like at the beginning of season 2, like it feels like that. Like, and I think it got me more excited, and it makes me now saying they're experimenting a lot with these 2 episodes for sure. Because in some ways, I mean, the storytelling was in a lot of ways similar, but like I said, there was also a lot of difference, and I think it was a lot to do with like the showing and not just telling. And so I think I can only imagine like this artful way of storytelling mixed with more profound writing that doesn't feel surface level, because I feel like in season 1, not gonna lie, it kind of tread into a little bit of surface level writing in some ways. but it gives me, these episodes give me hope for that aspect. Yeah, and just more how to film artfully and tell, you know, and bring that kind of stylization into the show, because I think they were kind of struggling with like, how do I do that, because I think the camera work from season 1, I think, is such a talking point. Like, it made you feel like it was so fast paced and it had such a distinct style, and like made you feel like you're in a music video a lot of time, and it contributed so much into this very distinct style that Euphoria has, that few shows right now are having. So it would, you know, I'm sure it probably hurt to like damn, I can't have 10 camera operators right now to do this, you know, crazy shot. And I don't know about like the room spinning, if we'll get another room spinning shot, for example. But I feel like this way of storytelling, and visual storytelling specifically, works for Euphoria, and I think it might be, you know, a necessary change. You don't want to always do the same thing, so I don't know. I think this Jules episode made me insanely excited for season 2, and I'm very confident that whatever they want to do with season 2, they're gonna find a way to do it with season 2, and they're going to do it beautifully. They're gonna do it. They're gonna bring some aesthetics back, you know, because I feel like, you know, it's important. I mean, that aspect of the show took so much up of the zeitgeist. So yeah, but I essentially am going to give this episode an 8 out of 10. For all the reasons I just talked about. And you know, this is my first time doing this. Locations might change, things might change, but yeah, I'm watching a lot of TV again, and I'm really excited. I'm gonna cover a bunch. Search Party just had their last episode drop, so I hope it's good. Let's see. Expect that to be coming soon. But yeah, thanks for watching. Continue doing it, please.